The classroom buzzed with chatter as students prepared for the day. Among them sat Amir, a 13-year-old boy who had only recently moved from Syria with his family. His English was broken, his accent heavy, and though he was bright, he often struggled to express himself. That morning, Amir raised his hand to answer a question in history class. Nervously, he stood up, clutching his worn-out notebook. But before he could even finish his sentence, his teacher, Mr. Thompson, smirked. "Class, listen carefully," the teacher sneered, mimicking Amir's accent. "This is what happens when you don't learn proper English." The room went silent, then scattered laughter filled the air. Amir's cheeks burned with shame. His hands trembled as he sank back into his chair, eyes fixed on the desk, wishing he could disappear. Some students exchanged awkward glances, clearly uncomfortable, while others giggled. The teacher, however, continued the lesson as if nothing had happened. But what Mr. Thompson didn't realize was that humiliation has consequences. And today, those consequences were already walking down the school hallway, in the form of Amir's father. Amir was not like most of the kids in his classroom. Just 3 months earlier, he had left behind his childhood home in Aleppo, Syria, a city scarred by war. His father, Dr. Karim Hassan, had worked tirelessly as a civil engineer before the conflict forced the family to flee. Starting fresh in the United States was supposed to be their new beginning, a chance at safety, at opportunity, at peace. But for Amir, every day at school felt like a battlefield of its own. He carried his mother's reminders like armor: "Be patient, Amir. Learn their ways. Your time will come." Yet patience was difficult when every word he spoke was greeted with stifled giggles, confused stares, or, worst of all, his teacher's condescending looks. Mr. Thompson wasn't just any teacher, he was the authority figure in the classroom. To most students, he appeared strict but fair. Yet when it came to Amir, his strictness turned into subtle ridicule. Sometimes it was a mocking smile, other times an exaggerated sigh when Amir stumbled over words. And though Amir's classmates noticed, very few dared to intervene. After all, who challenges the teacher? Still, Amir tried. He studied every night, repeating English words aloud until his voice cracked. His father often sat beside him, helping with math problems and encouraging him. "You are stronger than you think, Amir. Remember, every building I ever designed started with a weak foundation, but it grew stronger with time." But Mr. Thompson didn't see potential. He saw weakness. And weakness, to him, was something to expose. On the day of the incident, Amir had walked into class with a quiet sense of pride. He had memorized yesterday's lesson on the American Revolution. He knew the dates, the events, the names. This was his chance to prove he belonged. So when Mr. Thompson asked, "Who can tell me about the Boston Tea Party?" Amir's hand shot up before he even realized it. His heart pounded as he stood, voice trembling but steady enough to recite the facts he had worked so hard to learn. Yet halfway through his answer, Mr. Thompson cut him off with a theatrical groan. "Oh no, class, here we go again. History, in broken English," he declared, his tone dripping with sarcasm. He exaggerated Amir's accent, dragging out syllables, turning the boy's effort into comedy. Laughter erupted. Not from malice in every case, some kids laughed because they were nervous, some because they didn't know what else to do. But to Amir, it all felt the same, a knife twisting deeper into the wound of his insecurity. Amir sat down slowly, wishing his desk could swallow him whole. He didn't notice the sympathetic look from Sarah, the girl sitting 2 rows over, who bit her lip in discomfort. Nor did he see the frown on David, a usually quiet student who shook his head at the teacher's cruelty. What Amir didn't know was that his father, Dr. Hassan, had taken the day off from work. Determined to ensure his son was settling into school, he had arranged to meet the principal for a quick check-in. He was already in the building, walking past brightly decorated hallways lined with motivational posters: respect, kindness, diversity, all the values now being shattered inside that classroom. And as he approached the door, the muffled sound of laughter slipped through. A teacher's voice echoed with mockery. A boy's voice, his son's, fell silent. Dr. Hassan's steps slowed. His brow furrowed. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Dr. Hassan hesitated for a moment outside the classroom door. He heard it again, Mr. Thompson's mocking tone, this time followed by another round of laughter. His chest tightened, but instead of barging in, he decided to wait. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes. Inside, Amir sat stiffly at his desk, eyes glued to the floor. His cheeks burned hot, but he didn't dare wipe away the single tear threatening to fall. He knew if anyone saw it, the teasing would only get worse. Amir, Mr. Thompson continued, waving a paper in the air, this isn't how we write in America. Look at these sentences, half the words spelled wrong. And grammar? Forget about it. He turned to the class, holding the paper like a prop. Class, let this be a lesson. If you don't learn proper English, this is what your essays will look like. A disaster. A ripple of uneasy laughter spread again. Some kids laughed genuinely, others uncomfortably. Sarah shifted in her seat, glancing at Amir, then back at Mr. Thompson with visible disapproval. David whispered under his breath, "That's messed up," but didn't speak louder. Amir wished he could vanish. His hands clenched under the desk until his knuckles turned white. Why? Why did it always have to be me? Meanwhile, outside the door, Dr. Hassan felt his pulse quicken. He had come to America believing in opportunity, in respect, in the promise that his son would be treated fairly. But what he was hearing shook that belief. He slowly opened the door a crack and peered in. The scene hit him like a punch, his son, humiliated, the teacher, towering with false authority, the students, caught between discomfort and complicity. But Dr. Hassan stayed quiet, for now. He wanted to see how far this would go. Mr. Thompson wasn't done. "Stand up, Amir," he ordered sharply. Amir froze. "I said, stand up. Read this paragraph out loud for the class. Let's see if you can even pronounce the words properly." Amir rose slowly, legs trembling. His hands shook as he held the paper. He started reading, his accent noticeable but his effort sincere. Halfway through, Thompson interrupted again. No. It's revolution, not revolution. Listen carefully." He exaggerated the correction, overpronouncing each syllable, then looked at the class with a smirk. "See? This is what happens when you don't belong here." The words landed like stones. Amir's breath caught. He wanted to cry, but he held it in. Somewhere deep inside, his father's voice echoed, "You are stronger than you think." David couldn't take it anymore. He blurted out, "That's not fair. He's trying. At least he's answering when nobody else is." The classroom went silent. A student had dared to defend Amir. Mr. Thompson's eyes narrowed. "David, sit down. Don't interrupt me." But the tension had shifted. Sarah raised her hand timidly. Mr. Thompson, maybe you shouldn't make fun of him. It's hard learning a new language." A few others murmured in agreement. Not loudly, but enough that Thompson felt the room slipping from his control. His face reddened. He slammed the paper on the desk. "Enough. I am the teacher here. If anyone has a problem with how I run this class, they can take it up with the principal. Otherwise, keep your mouths shut." Silence. The students shrank back into their chairs. Amir stood frozen, humiliated beyond words. And that's when the door creaked open fully. Dr. Hassan stepped inside. His tall frame and calm, commanding presence immediately drew attention. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry on the surface. But his eyes, sharp, steady, unflinching, spoke volumes. "Please," he said quietly but firmly, "continue." Mr. Thompson stuttered, caught off guard. We were just reviewing Amir's work." "Reviewing?" Dr. Hassan's voice cut through the room like steel. He walked closer, every step deliberate. From where I was standing, it sounded more like humiliation. The students exchanged wide-eyed glances. Amir's heart raced. His father was here. His father had seen everything. Mr. Thompson tried to recover, forcing a chuckle. "You must be Amir's father." "Look, I'm just trying to teach him. He needs to toughen up if he wants to succeed here." Dr. Hassan's eyes darkened. Teaching is guiding. Not ridiculing. Not breaking a child's spirit. Do you think mocking an immigrant student makes you a better educator? The room was silent except for the faint hum of the overhead lights. Every student leaned in, waiting. The power dynamic had shifted completely. And in that silence, Amir felt something he hadn't felt in weeks: hope. Mr. Thompson's forced smile faltered. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not in front of his students. For years, he had ruled his classroom with sarcasm and authority, confident no parent would ever confront him like this. But Dr. Hassan was different. His calm voice carried more weight than anger ever could. "Tell me, Mr. Thompson," Dr. Hassan said steadily, "when you mock a child for his accent, what lesson are you teaching the rest of the class?" The teacher shifted uncomfortably. I was trying to make a point about proper English." "Proper English?" Dr. Hassan repeated, his tone sharpening. He turned to the class. "Children, do you know how many languages exist in the world?" Hands went up slowly. Sarah whispered, "Thousands." "Yes," Dr. Hassan nodded. "Over 7,000. And every language has its own beauty, its own rhythm. When Amir speaks, he carries the music of another culture with him. That is not weakness. That is strength." A murmur spread among the students. For the first time, they weren't looking at Amir with pity. They were looking at him with respect. Mr. Thompson's jaw tightened. "This is my classroom. I decide how things are run here." Dr. Hassan stepped closer, his presence towering though his voice remained calm. "And I am his father. I decide how my son is treated. You may have authority, but authority without respect is nothing more than bullying." The students gasped softly. No one had ever spoken to Mr. Thompson like this. Amir's heart pounded. He felt torn, humiliated from before, yet now proud that his father stood by his side. "Tell me, Mr. Thompson," Dr. Hassan continued, "when you were a child, did you speak perfectly? Did you never make mistakes?" The teacher stammered, "That's not the same." "It is exactly the same," Dr. Hassan interrupted firmly. "But perhaps the real difference is this: you had the privilege of learning in your mother tongue. My son does not. And yet, he still tries. He still shows up. That makes him braver than most." The classroom went utterly silent. Students were leaning forward, wide-eyed, hanging on to every word. Amir looked at his father with admiration he couldn't hide. For weeks he had felt small, invisible. But right now, he felt seen. Mr. Thompson's face was red now. I think you're misunderstanding my teaching methods." "No," Dr. Hassan said calmly, "I understand them perfectly. But now the question is, do these children understand? Class, tell me, do you respect someone more when they lift you up, or when they tear you down?" "Lift up," several voices echoed. "Encourage," Sarah added. "Help, not humiliate," David said firmly. The tide had turned. The students themselves had spoken against their teacher. Dr. Hassan placed a hand gently on Amir's shoulder. "My son will succeed. Not because of you, but in spite of you. And one day, when he achieves more than you ever imagined, you will remember this moment, and regret it. A hush fell over the room. Even Mr. Thompson had no words. Amir finally raised his head, meeting his teacher's eyes, not with fear, but with quiet strength. For the first time, he felt the power of his own voice, even without speaking. That single look, father and son standing united, was the breaking point. The balance of power had shifted forever. Mr. Thompson sank into his chair, the weight of silence pressing against him. For the first time, he was not the authority in the room. The students no longer looked to him with respect, but with disappointment. The shift was undeniable. Dr. Hassan took a slow breath, steady and calm. "This conversation does not end here," he said firmly. "I will be speaking to the principal about the treatment my son has received. No child should fear coming to school because of the one who is supposed to guide them." Amir's classmates nodded. Even Sarah, who had once giggled nervously during Mr. Thompson's jokes, whispered, "He's right." Dr. Hassan looked at the students. "Children, I want you to remember this: greatness is not measured by how well you speak English, or any language. It is measured by your kindness, your courage, and your respect for others. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." The words landed like seeds in their young minds, seeds that would grow into compassion and awareness. Amir, sitting straighter now, whispered softly, "Thank you, Baba." Later that day, Dr. Hassan met with the school principal. He explained everything: Amir's humiliation, the teacher's repeated mockery, the emotional toll it had taken. The principal, alarmed and embarrassed, promised swift action. An investigation was launched, and Mr. Thompson was issued a formal warning, with diversity training mandated. But the real change happened in the classroom. The next week, something remarkable occurred. Amir walked in nervously, expecting the same judgmental stares. Instead, Sarah smiled and saved him a seat. David asked him about his favorite books from his home country. Slowly, the walls of isolation began to crumble. For the first time, Amir felt like he belonged. Mr. Thompson, subdued and cautious, avoided his old sarcasm. Though his pride kept him silent, the shame in his eyes revealed he understood: his authority was no longer absolute. The class had seen through him. Days turned into weeks, and Amir's confidence grew. He raised his hand more often, his accent still present but his voice steady. And every time, his classmates encouraged him instead of laughing. One afternoon, Amir gave a short presentation about his culture, his favorite foods, traditions, and even a few words in his native language. When he finished, the class erupted in applause. His father's words had taken root: his difference was not weakness, it was strength. As Amir left school that day, he looked up at the sky with a quiet smile. For so long, he had carried the weight of shame. Now, he carried pride. Dr. Hassan walked beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Do you see, Amir? Respect is earned not by being like everyone else, but by being true to who you are." Amir nodded, his heart full. "I do, Baba." And as they walked home together, Amir realized that this painful chapter had given him something unexpected: not just the strength to stand tall, but the certainty that his voice mattered. The story didn't just end with a teacher being corrected, it ended with a boy discovering his worth, a class learning compassion, and a community reminded that dignity knows no borders. And for Mr. Thompson, every time he saw Amir standing confidently in front of the class, he was reminded of that day. A day when arrogance crumbled, and truth walked in through the door. The lesson was clear, for him, for the students, and for anyone listening. Never measure a child's worth by their accent, their color, or their background. Because one day, that very child may stand taller than you ever imagined.